Welcome to the next episode of Game of Attention. Today we have Jeanne with us. Jeanne, can you tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, and what you intend to do in the future?
Hi, Beka. Thanks for having me here. I am a solutions architect at a consulting company here in Germany, originally from Cape Town, South Africa. I have been in the data engineering and business intelligence side of IT for 14 years now. And currently, what I do is I build data solutions for clients, where that consists of migrating data from on-prem solutions to the cloud. And currently, I do a lot of workshops on Microsoft's latest product, Microsoft Fabric, and I help show clients how they can utilize Microsoft Fabric and bring that into their current solutions or build new solutions and do POCs off of that data. Where I want to be in the future is I never want to stop developing. I never want to stop designing solutions for companies and building more cool things with the latest shiny object, which is currently Microsoft Fabric.
So today we are talking about ChatGPT. So my first question for you, based on kind of the recent upgrade specifically, is that it allows for voice conversations and image-based interactions. From your perspective, how do you see these new capabilities influencing the landscape of AI-powered applications and products, and what opportunities or challenges do you think they present?
So, if you look at it from a speech point of view, I don't know what their level of integrating different accents is, for example, because like if you take our South African accent and you try and do the whole text to speech thing, it doesn't pick up half the things you say and thinks you said something else. So if they can get that right and perfect with everyone's accents around the world, that would be great. I haven't tested the accent thing. But as from the image point of view, I've seen some amazing things that you can do with it. You can go and draw on a whiteboard and you can design an app, for example, on a whiteboard, and you will say, or like a website, and you can say what you want it to do. You can change things around, and then you send that picture into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will then produce the code that you can then go and put into your application that you're creating. And it even takes out the things that you've scratched out, or things you've moved around. It looks at that image and it's able to change everything and develop that code for you that you just go and copy and paste. So I think for a lot of developers who are trying to do POCs or do small projects, or have just started out and they've just actually done this rough diagram on a whiteboard, ChatGPT can already like write most of the code for them. And then if you look at like what Microsoft is doing with AI and how they're releasing Copilot, there's already Copilot for GitHub, and now they're going to release Copilot in Fabric. And if you look from a business point of view, business users can then go and say like they've got a dashboard and they want to get like the most insights out of it, and they can type their questions in and get those answers out. And then people who are just new to coding can say what they want to code, and then the Copilot goes and writes out the code for them to copy and paste in. So I think a lot of companies are using AI now and incorporating AI to their tools, to essentially make people's lives easier.
It's such a powerful thing that, yes, it's great for efficiency and it's great for kind of making things easier, writing code for you. I use it for research and it halves my research time easily. It gives me structures, it gives me topics, and I can then cross reference that with my own work and my own research. But what about the people who don't do that and are just trying to use it as a shortcut?
So I know like schools are having this major problem at the moment where students are using it for their schoolwork and to write their papers for them. I know I saw someone had actually developed a tool where you can go and copy and paste those things in, and you can see how much of it was produced by AI. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
So someone has actually, because someone thought of that, they've designed this tool to go, okay, how much was produced by AI and how much is someone's actual work, because now you also get people who are going to hand in CVs, and they're going to,
Mhm.
let's say, like in our field, we get technical interviews, but some companies, they send us an assessment. We've got to do an assessment to prove, like, we have the skills. And what if we're using ChatGPT for that? So,
Yeah.
like, there is bad, and some people will be able to get away with it. And there is those cool tools that you can sort of see how much was done by AI.
Like the voice capability is powered by a text to speech model and speech recognition system. So, on the technical considerations and architectural aspects involved in implementing that, how can those technologies be leveraged to ensure a seamless user experience while maintaining data privacy and security?
So, they've got to look at latency is one of the things. So, like, while you're doing and you're speaking to give text to ChatGPT, like, how much is ChatGPT picking up on that? So they've got to work on their latency side of things, which is something they've got to consider while building it. And also, depending on where people are in the world, what's their internet like, because that's also going to affect their latency. Um, and then from a security point of view, is they need to have that end-to-end encryption so that no one else can go and grab that voice data and then use it in a bad way, because some people do password protect things with their voice.
Mhm.
And if someone gets that out, then they can now use your voice to go and do voice recognition for security reasons. So they need that end to end encryption. And then I think what they also tend to do is they make you acknowledge, like, that they are going to do the recording when you start sending over your voice. And they also tell you what the intended use is for your voice data, so that you're fully aware of what can and can't happen with it. And all of this has to be taken into account.
Yeah. I saw something the other day. Can't remember where I saw it. I think it was on LinkedIn. And it was this hacker or this guy who's an AI specialist. And with permission of this billionaire, he emailed the assistant and said, please move $10 million or whatever. And then sent the voice, like, did the voice confirmation over the phone to her. And she sent it. Um,
Yeah.
So, because I'm not being funny, right? Those things that come up on my phone and say, "Have you read the data and privacy?" I mean, I never read them.
I don't think anyone ever reads like the terms and conditions. Like, you
Yeah.
just scroll down to the bottom and click accept.
Yeah. So, I mean, how much of this is going to get out of control before people realize, like, how much permission they're actually giving over? Because no one's really reading it, and everyone, you know, I don't know. It's an interesting one.
I think, like, if you take WhatsApp, for example, every time you start a new conversation, it shows you at the top that these messages are end-to-end encrypted. So I
Mm.
think, like, even though people do just like blindly accept terms and conditions, if ChatGPT puts that clause in all the time and you're more aware of it, like, I know if you're using the free version of ChatGPT, it tells you when the model is trained until,
Mm-hmm.
because I've had experience where an architect at a client goes and uses ChatGPT to come up with a solution, and the data at the time was based on, I think, up until 2019.
Yeah,
So,
September.
like, that's 4 years behind, and now you want to make a decision based on data that's 4 years old, and technology's changed since then. We've got new solutions, we've got better ways of doing things. And I don't think the architect realized, like, he's trying to make a decision based on old data, not new data. And that's also a risk. But ChatGPT highlights that if you're using the free version, like, it's out there, you can see that it's based on older data.
Do you think there's a question here of kind of authenticity and trust? Because if you are like, I don't really know how it works in your world, obviously, but I have copywriters that I give briefs to every month that I need, and I need them to write. So I brief them, and then they come back with work, and then I check it and I make sure that it's what I want. But I don't check it. against like how much of it is human. I'm just trusting that they're bringing me genuine work. So where is the line, in your opinion, of blind trust and, trust until there's a reason not to trust? Or do you just assume that everybody is using this technology and you should be checking anyway? Like, am I naive to not be checking? Or, what do you think?
I feel like, especially in with what I do, pretty much everyone uses ChatGPT, knows what ChatGPT is. I think from like content creation and everything, I it would make people's jobs easier to use ChatGPT. So I think to a certain extent they probably are using it. But like if they're not just letting ChatGPT do the work for them, then it's fine. But like how do you know that?
I
And how
agree.
much trust do you have? So you would also have to look at like the company's reputation, how long they've been around for. Like if you see someone who's just started up and they've got like all these amazing stats and everything, you've got to kind of question it. Um, but I think everyone uses ChatGPT in parts of their work. Just
Yeah,
makes life easier.
it does make life easier. Yeah. I think as well, it's interesting the thing you said earlier about like how people can plan things on a whiteboard. I haven't tried this yet, but I plan a lot of my content on paper and then I manually transfer it. So it'd be so much easier if I could just hold a screen over it and it would just beautifully appear on, yeah, that would save me a lot of time.
It does. It does. And then like if you look at like the other side of ChatGPT, like let's say you're stuck on the side of the road and you don't know how to change a tire, and you take a photo and you go like, how do I change the tire? And then it can tell you. Or like you have you need to change the oil on your car for some reason by yourself, and the oil changes in different places on different cars, and you can go to ChatGPT, like take a photo of the engine, and it picks up what car it is and where exactly the oil needs to be changed and everything, and it can help you with that. So I think like a lot of people who don't know how to do certain things, maybe it's like fixing plumbing at home, and they can now take photos of their problems, and ChatGPT can help them solve their problems and not necessarily have to call in an expert. Because sometimes it is simple. It can save people money as well in the long run.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think like that kind of efficiency and independence that it can give is really great. But I do question what it does for human connection. I think you always have to when it comes to technology, because if you are looking on, I mean, you do it with Google now, so it's not that much different. It's just more accessible and
Yeah,
on a much greater scale. But what does that mean for human connection? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what that looks like in the next however many years. But if I'm asking AI a question as opposed to asking a person a question, but I suppose Google does the same thing. Just
the, so the thing is, the ChatGPT can only answer based on the amount of information you give it. If you don't give it the full picture and all the context, the answer it's going to give you is very subjective to only the context you've handed it. Whereas if you're speaking to an actual person who can ask questions back, because ChatGPT is not asking you questions back, you can ask
yes,
questions back, get the full picture, you can get a better answer than you can a ChatGPT. And I know like a lot of people are scared for their jobs and stuff like that. And I always joke, like in my line of work, unless a client can perfectly describe what they want done, there's no way AI could take over because AI can't perfectly, well, clients generally can't perfectly describe what they want. Most of the time, they don't know what they want. You've got to help them figure it out. Um, so I think the same is for AI. Like you're still gonna have that human connection because I don't think most people can describe exactly everything in order for ChatGPT to give it its answers.
no, that's fair. That's a fair point. I think as well, like there's a there's a big thing here between, as you say, about like people scared for their jobs, but it's very much taking the bull by the horns and using it to improve. Like like for me personally, my efficiency has improved massively on research, and that gives me more time to do other stuff that I often don't have time for. So if you use it in the right ways, it can actually empower you. But it's that balance of feeling threatened and actually, this is great, this is a tool I can use. So down to the individual, perhaps,
I
company
think
culture.
yes, it would be down to the individual, their own drive for how they want to use it. I know, like a lot of people, they want to cheat their way through life. They're going to use ChatGPT, but at the end of the day, you still have full-on conversations with people, especially to interview them for companies. And through a conversation, you can see how much was actually ChatGPT, or how much do they actually know from experience or from having that knowledge from learning it. So you got to find that balance, but it is up to the person.
Makes sense. So the last thing I want to ask you, well, I mean, probably not, but the last main thing I want to ask you is that OpenAI's update also includes image-based interactions with ChatGPT. What are your thoughts on the technical complexities of integrating image recognition on a text-based AI system, and how might this enhance the utility of AI applications in various domains? Additionally, what potential use cases do you foresee for this capability?
To break that up. So if you look at ChatGPT taking in images and that interactivity, so that's like that example of like drawing stuff on a whiteboard. But also, if you look into that, let's say doctors start doing this and they use their handwriting, how many people can read a doctor's handwriting? I
Mm.
don't know how well ChatGPT is going to read a doctor's handwriting. I do know that they use like deep learning models and everything to enhance it, but like I feel like that's going to take a lot of time to get to like the recognition of handwriting in ChatGPT. But like it's a large language model, so it learns from itself continuously and it will continuously improve. So I think right now it's great already. It's only going to get better.
What potential use cases do you see for this capability?
So let's carry on with the doctor's thread and healthcare. So let's take an X-ray of a person,
Hmm.
and they've got an X-ray. You submit this X-ray into ChatGPT, and it can help healthcare providers come up with multiple diagnoses back based on the X-ray that's provided. So the healthcare provider is hopefully not just using what ChatGPT says, but
Yeah.
it could come up with possible diagnoses that the doctor maybe didn't think of, and it can help them in that sense come up with all the possible problems and then solutions. But at the end of the day, the doctor still needs to make the choice with that. And then if you look at, let's say someone goes hiking, and you can take a photo of a landmark and go, okay, well, where am I? And ChatGPT can go, okay, based on like the image you submitted, like this is the history behind the image, like certain things happened here, and you could have like a guided tour with ChatGPT while you're hiking. So there are different scenarios that could be used for the image recognition, which could be quite fun to play with.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the big thing that comes to my mind is meal planning. Like
Oh,
taking a photo
yeah.
of the fridge and being like, this is the food I have, give me a meal plan for the whole week. So I don't have to think about it.
Yeah. And then it can also show you images of similar dishes that were made with the same ingredients.
So yeah, I feel like that would be my greatest personal use. Um, at work, I'm kind of keen for this new updated version because it's current. It's not dated back to 2019. So things like statistics for me, when I use that in articles and things, I'm still manually having to go and pull that out. And obviously, I still fact check and whatever, but it's so much easier when you have a point of reference as
Yeah.
opposed to digging in the abyss of Google. So
Yes. Google is a large abyss.
now, from a work point of view, what do you think? Do you think these updates are going to have a massive impact on what you do on a day to day basis?
I think from a chat GPT point of view, for what I do, it doesn't, for me specifically, it doesn't really affect me too much.
Hmm.
I'm more excited about Copilot being released in Fabric and no longer being in private preview, because currently it's in private preview, can't get my hands on it to play with it. So I'm more excited for Copilot coming out and then playing with that functionality and actually being able to show companies in workshops like what they can do, because it's going more towards the self-service side of business intelligence for companies, that they can empower their employees to actually do all of this work as well. And which is the other benefit, is that people don't have to know how to write code, and they can design these solutions. Whether it's efficient is another story, and a different topic completely. But that's what I'm most excited for. I think like the chat GPT side of things, I'm more excited to play with it personally, and but I don't necessarily need it right now for the work that I am doing.
What about explaining your work? Because I know, obviously, on a personal level, that sometimes clients don't always understand what you're trying to tell them. Do you think that Chat GPT could be useful, kind of putting what you do into layman's terms so that you don't have to talk yourself in circles?
I think depending on our client base. So sometimes we have workshops with the very technical side of business, and sometimes we don't. And it's more like the business side, and they're not technical. I think for people starting out in their careers who don't know how to put things in layman's terms, it would be very helpful for them. I have had a lot of practice putting most of what I do in layman's terms, because most people don't understand it. um, you one of them. So I'm very good at putting things in
Yeah.
layman's terms, or speaking like fully technical. I normally gauge how technical someone is to which words I use. But I think it can be very helpful, like if you're trying to write it down and you don't know
Hmm.
exactly how to write it down, how to make it sound easier for someone else to understand.
Now, obviously, you are super technical, right? Which we know, highly technical person. And now you're in Germany learning
Yes.
German
Yes.
and dealing with German clients. So, in
Yes.
terms of that kind of translation aspect, do you think it could be useful there? Or do you just think that it would kind of take the learning push that you need away from you if you could rely on something like that for translation?
So I actually that I do use ChatGPT to translate from English
Okay.
into German. Also, the nice thing about ChatGPT is I can say, okay, it needs to be in the formal version or semi-formal or informal version of German, and it's the most accurate translator that I've used. Because like if you use Google Translate, it doesn't
Yeah.
always translate correctly, and then there's deeper. So for me being in Germany, when I've needed to translate into German, it's very accurate, very helpful. And also like if you're trying to understand things, it can explain like why it writes things a certain way. So
Hmm.
for learning a language, it's very helpful and useful. um, but as for interacting with like German clients and everything, most of the projects I go on, everything's in English, so I don't have that problem. I do some workshops with entire workshops in German, and then the demos I give on certain products are all in English, because most of the clients, being in IT, speak English. So
Hmm.
I don't always have that problem.
Is it something that you will do in the future, like once you've kind of, because you're still quite fresh in Germany? So is it something that, as you kind of advance with your language ability, will you start going on more German based projects, or is it a
I
personal
think
choice,
like
or is it just where the land lies?
um so currently I do go on English-based projects that are within Germany or Austria or Switzerland. So that's the region the company I work at covers. Um, and those are generally English-based customers. Well,
Hmm.
the customers are German, but the projects are English-based, because they also have external teams that are maybe in India or the UK, and so you actually have people from multiple nationalities all over the world on the project, even though the client is based in Germany. I would possibly, if I get to like fluency level in German, go on to projects that are 100% only in German. I think it might be another 5 years before I reach that level, um, as it is a third language. So
Yeah.
it's going to take me a while to get to like fluency. And then it's also like the next step is like it's technical
Yeah.
German fluency. And I think that's maybe where I would struggle a bit more. Um, so it will still be a while, but I will get there.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing about technical language. And I'm thinking back to like when I taught English in China and we had like obviously the kids classes and the adult classes and then the business adult classes. And I'm wondering how ChatGPT will kind of change how that works now. You know, if it's going to take over from them pulling over English speakers, obviously the tone and all that kind of thing, but there's so much virtual learning. I've got a friend who does virtual teaching online to Asian students, and how much of a role ChatGPT will have in helping those with like take on the business English.
So the other thing to remember is when you get taught English, you also learn it with the person's accent that is teaching you.
Mm.
So like I've met some German people when they speak English, they speak it with an American accent, and it's because like one parent is American, and and they've never been to America, but they learn it with that accent. And like my son now, I noticed the other day when he speaks English, he sounds very South African. um, and when he speaks German, he sounds very German. So I think like with ChatGPT, it depends on how they're going to modify how the language sounds when it's coming out with ChatGPT speaking. So like, can you pick an accent, for example? Do you want to speak English with a British accent? Like that would be cool. Um, so like I think it would take away, but you also don't want people to sound like a robot.
Yeah, there are. I'm just pulling it up because I can't remember. There's like 4 or 5 different like voices that they have that you can use at the moment, but they all sound very like meditative.
Yeah.
They're like like the like on the app, the sleep apps. It's like that kind of, and they all sound very different tones, but it's all very much not a real
Monotone.
voice. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And one of them is called Ember, so they're all quite like Ember and Ocean and all sorts.
Yeah. Yeah. I think some people would still like the real person teaching them a language
Mm.
than a computer. Yeah. Because also if you have someone who's from that culture, for example, teaching you that language, there's so much more that you can learn than just the language, which ChatGPT wouldn't be able to give to you.
Yeah. So in summary, basically, it depends on the person and how they use it,
Yeah.
and regardless of how advanced technology gets, humans will always seek that connection.
I think so. Take COVID, for example. Everyone in lockdown, a lot of people miss that human connection. So, like, if AI comes into things, like will always seek human connection. It's ingrained into us.
Well, thank you very much for your time and your expertise. It's always nice hearing from an expert in a different field, especially such a technical one, and how you see things like this. Because I think not only is it very reassuring to people who don't have that kind of knowledge, but it's just interesting to hear how it's used in different fields as well. So thanks very much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.